Hotel and Casino, Atlantic City. It's time to get in on all the games you love. Experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet at FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's off the boardwalk, Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN, home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They've got 'em!
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Tuesday edition of Game Night, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live, as always, at 97.3 ESPN on YouTube and Twitter. Got a lot to get to, just an hour to get to it on the show today. Bo Wulf from The Athletic will join us coming up at 6:20. Dig deeper into the Eagles' first win of the season as week one of the NFL season is officially in the books. And as you heard it right here on 97.3 ESPN last night, that game went to overtime. And if you were up watching that game and hoping you might get a regular NFL game, nope, that game wasn't done until almost midnight. And it was a wild game. It was a wild way to end. It felt so appropriate that the first game of the season came down to the end, and then the final game of week one came down to the end of the game as well. Just a wild weekend to recap here of football on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, you could text into the show. As always, text board is open, 609-403-0973. You could also direct message the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And, of course, as I mentioned, you can watch the show on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. We thank you wherever you are consuming the show today. You know, after the weekend is now in the books, we can take our first look at the entire league. And I got to tell you guys, my first look at the entire league, I've taken one major thing away from this weekend of college football and the NFL. Don't assume everything. You can have an educated opinion on things, but man, there were a lot of assumptions made about teams that were completely wrong. A lot of people assumed the Packers were going to go out there and beat up on the Saints because they weren't in New Orleans. The opposite happened. A lot of people assumed that a team like Washington was going to show why they are a contender in the NFC East. Instead, they have another quarterback injury for another year down there in the nation's capital. Look around the NFL. Seriously. Did you really think that the Steelers were going to go in and just beat up the Buffalo Bills, or that the Browns were going to quarters? Listen, there are some things we know for a fact. You don't leave time on the clock for Tom Brady, and you don't leave the fourth quarter for Patrick Mahomes. But aside from those two things, as a general principle, there were some unknowns about this weekend we were waiting to see. You know, Urban Meyer has a losing record for the first time in his coaching career. That's right. Urban Meyer's never had a losing record before right now, which is part of the reason why people keep linking his name to the USC job, just because of the fact of how bizarre of a situation he is in. And then you have the Eagles. Yes, the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles, the first place in the NFC East, Philadelphia Eagles. And you got to think, did you really think this was going to happen? I mean, obviously there were some scenarios for how we thought it could happen, but we weren't really 100% sure that it was going to happen. And I can't not think of all the people who doubted the Eagles, who hated on Jalen Hurts, who would all nothing but, crud to say about these guys. And the reason why I bring that up is because, as I wrote about over at 973ESPN.com today, all the people who had very, very vocal opinions have suddenly gone silent. They've suddenly gotten very, very quiet when it comes to Hurts and the Eagles. In fact, probably the person with the loudest opinion right now is this Bow Wow video that's going just swooping the internet. If you haven't seen it, go to 973ESPN.com or jump on the 973 ESPN mobile app. Bow Wow's got more to say than any of the Hurts haters right now. It's such a strange situation to see how things play out. So moving forward, I think there's a couple things that we need to just accept as reality. And the first of those things is Jalen Hurts is not as bad as some of the so-called experts thought he was going to be. And then Nick Sirianni is not some bumbling, fumbling idiot like some people wanted to tell us he was. See, people make judgments sometimes about people based on nothing objective, based on nothing that is based in reality. Think about all the things people are saying about Jalen Hurts. First of all, after the win, it's, the Falcons are a horrible team. Falcons aren't a horrible team. The Falcons have a lesser roster than the Eagles. Guys, this is the National Football League. And, maybe I'm being a little bit too much of a grammar police. Maybe I'm being too much of a nitpicker. But when people use phrases like, he's stupid, he sucks, that guy's an imbecile, what a loser. The National Football League is a very, very, very select group of people. You do not get to that level without some sort of ability or talent. It's not an accident, okay? This isn't college football where we're questioning if Rutgers is legitimate because they beat Temple 61-14. And the next week they beat up on Syracuse, right? This is the NFL where anyone can be anyone any day of the week. Just ask the 49ers how they almost went to overtime with the Detroit Lions, who Urban Meyer lost to the Texans in week 1. So this idea that, the Eagles only won because the Falcons are a bad team is a nice escape hatch for people who don't want to admit that the Eagles and Hurts are not as bad as they previously declared them to be. And by the way, Jalen Hurts now has 5 starts in the Eagles uniform under his belt. For comparison, Jalen Hurts has more passing yards in his first 5 Eagles starts than Donovan McNabb or Nick Foles. He has more passing touchdowns in his first 5 starts than McNabb, Foles, or Carson Wentz. Let's also remember that he has fewer turnovers in those 5 starts than Donovan McNabb did. And he only has 1 more than Nick Foles did in his first 5 starts. The Eagles' record so far when Jalen Hurts has started a game is 2-3. McNabb, the Eagles were 1-4. Foles, the Eagles were 1-4. And you know what McNabb and Foles did? They led this organization to a Super Bowl. Carson Wentz couldn't stay on the field long enough to do that. Listen, I'm not promising that Hurts is going to be an elite player. I'm not promising or telling he's going to be a superstar. But this idea that people make assumptions about things that are based on no reality at all. The get off my lawn guy who says running and mobile quarterbacks don't win Super Bowls. Or you can't win in the NFL with that poor of a completion percentage. You sound ridiculous. And I'm not going to sit here and just whitewash or placate or just hem and haw or, play along with this garbage here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. When I'm on this show, I'm going to try to give you the facts and the truth. And the facts and the truth is that the NFL first weekend told us anything. Just remember, the louder they scream, the more wrong they might be. I was told all off season about how Jameis Winston couldn't succeed in New Orleans. I had to hear all off season how Jalen Hurts is going to be a failure with the Eagles. I had to hear all off season about how Carson Wentz is going to take the Colts by storm, right? You know what Carson Wentz did on Sunday? The same thing he did in Philadelphia. Held the ball for 3, 4, 5 seconds at a time, and his offensive line looked bad. Sound familiar? I just am not going to play along with some of these games, folks. I'm not. Listen, if there are people out there who are going to feed into the emotional state of whatever team you believe in, and if you want to be emotionally led, that's on you. But I'm going to go by the facts. And the facts are this. Think about quarterbacks who have won Super Bowls. Every team with a quarterback that's won a Super Bowl, it's either with a Hall of Famer or it's with a great roster. In a case like Nick Foles, we know Nick Foles isn't going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but he had a great roster and he got hot at the right time. Similar to what a guy like Jeff Hostetler did for the Giants when Phil Simms went down, right? You can win with those guys. And by the way, for all the people who say running and mobile quarterbacks don't win championships, what exactly is Steve Young and Russell Wilson and John Elway? You know, Steve Young and Russell Wilson are top 5 all time in rushing yards among quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers is about 1,000 yards behind Steve Young. And John Elway's got more rushing yards in his career than Aaron Rodgers does. Be careful when people make these blanket statements. Because I'll tell you something. You know who lost in the Super Bowl? Kerry Collins, Rex Grossman, Jared Goff, and Matt Hasselbeck. I'll take Jalen Hurts over any of those guys. Because I value leadership and football IQ. Maybe you don't. And if you don't, tell me why. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. You also can DM the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. We are live, as always, on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. We'll get to some of your comments a little bit later in the show here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Josh Hennig hanging out with you. But coming up on the other side, we'll talk with Bo Wulf from The Athletic. We'll get more into breakdown of the Eagles' win over the Falcons and what it means for the Birds moving forward. And then we'll get to all your comments here on Game Night with Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. I want to remind you of my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. Football season is in full swing, and you can catch all the NFL action at FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's Atlantic City. The retail sportsbook is conveniently located off the boardwalk, featuring 5 betting windows, a large video wall, a sports ticker, 20 self-service betting kiosks, and various lounge seats. It's time for you to experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get in on all the games you love at FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. Get your game face on for football season and score big this weekend when you bet at FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. As I put out on Twitter, as we mentioned yesterday here on 97.3 ES. We gave you guys 5 winners on Friday, gave you another winner as well on Thursday. So we are keeping you updated on what you should be throwing down at Bally's Bally's Hotel and Casino at the FanDuel Sportsbook right off the boardwalk in Atlantic City. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night, 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City.
Wake up with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. Weekday mornings at 6 on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Jalen Hurts doesn't get the necessary respect around the National Football League from the pundits, not the players on the field, but people that, in my eyes, that don't watch enough football to know that this guy can really play.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. Listen weekday mornings at 6 on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea City. Eagles win week one, but even more importantly, as Bo Wulf writes at over The Athletic, they were actually fun to watch, and Bo Wulf joins us right now here on 97.3 ESPN. Bo, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you jumping on, and I love what you wrote about because it's so true. This team was actually fun to watch on Sunday. 2019, 2018, 2020, there was just so much angst and drama. It was like we actually got to sit down and watch a team play football without any strings attached.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think there are a lot of factors here. One being that when you enter a season with no expectations, right, it is a little bit more freeing. But also, that was as complete a performance. Who knows? The Falcons might be pretty bad, but that was as complete a performance as we've seen in a long time from the Eagles. The margin of victory was bigger than any game they had last season. Then you have to go all the way back to 2019. So, I mean, you saw guys in space. You saw new things. Every game, as you said, is not like some discussion about whether Carson Wentz is a good quarterback or not. Like, is he the right guy to lead the franchise? There's sort of this refreshing nature to this season with a new coach, a new quarterback, a completely new scheme, but also some of the old guys like Jason Kelce and Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox making noise. It's kind of nice, it feels like, to just be able to watch this group in a totally different context. You bring up
Zach Ertz's quote in your article in The Athletic about the fact that this is the most fun he's had in a while coming to work. And how do you quantify that? Like, how do you point in what direction? Who deserves credit for that? Is that the coaching staff? Is it upper management? Is it the players in the locker room? Why was it more fun?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Nick Sirianni gets pretty much all the credit for this. And we have talked about how sort of silly and nervous he was during that introductory press conference, but he has been able to find a way to not only get past that, but use that as sort of like a motivational tactic for the team. Like, he has sort of made fun of himself in front of the team about that introductory press conference and use it as an example of a way to sort of get over something that was a disappointment. And I think what Zach Ertz said matters. Like, he did not want to be here at the end of last season. He certainly did not expect to be here, but he came back and he sort of got to experience I sort of don't like to use the word culture, right? But at least the program that Nick Sirianni was building and the different emphases that he has. And Sirianni does all the time about the importance of connection. And I think, when you have a group like the Eagles do in a locker room that has a lot of guys who are 30 years or older, something like that sort of runs the risk of falling on deaf ears. But to their credit, to the credit of guys like Cox and Kelce and Zach Ertz, they have bought into that. And I think it has played out really well. I mean, it just anecdotally from being there every day at training camp, it does seem like the vibes have been strong with this team throughout. So who knows if that will keep up, if they hit a losing streak here and once they hit some adversity. But for now, it does seem like these guys are having a lot of fun.
Digging deeper into the Sirianni aspect, you mentioned about how camp was. And for you, what is the real difference between Sirianni this year and Doug Peterson last year? Because I don't think that Doug Peterson was some abomination coach. It's not like he was Rich Kotite or the end of the Chip Kelly era or something like that. But they're obviously
Super Bowl.
Well, right, exactly. But what is the difference between Peterson in 2020 and Sirianni in 2021?
So I think the biggest difference is not about, Doug, the head coach, or Sirianni, the head coach. I think it's about the offense. And, Doug Peterson was hired not just to be the head coach, but also to implement the offensive scheme that the Eagles wanted. And the offensive scheme felt stale over the past, really since the Super Bowl. I called it the Bog offense. Everything was very difficult for them on offense. They're running the 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets. They're not getting the ball down the field. And I think what Sirianni has done again, through one game when they had the entire offseason to prepare, so we don't want to overrate it, but it seemed like he had a lot of answers for Jalen Hurts, and he built the offense, at least the game plan in week one, around the kinds of things that his players could do well. So that meant, having a quarterback inclusive run game. That meant allowing Jalen Hurts to get outside the pocket. That meant, having guys like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside on the field to block and not asking him to go win one-on-one against a cornerback. It meant getting the ball to the hands of Quez Watkins and Jalen Reagor quickly, because those guys have speed to burn. And it seemed like that was what stood out to me, was that everybody was being asked to do things that they are good at, and they were not really being asked to do things that they can't do well. So instead of last year when Jalen Reagor is asked to go be on the outside and win one-on-one in man coverage, which is not something that he has proven he can do, instead Sirianni is putting guys in positions to succeed, and I think that really stood out in terms of Jalen Hurts' play.
Bo Wulf from The Athletic joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at Bo_Wolf on Twitter. Check out his latest article on The Athletic. Meet the 2021 Philadelphia Eagles, who happen to be pretty fun. Great read over there on The Athletic. Bo, with the offense, one of the biggest talking points of the offseason was the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, right? Everyone had an opinion. Everyone had a perspective. And I kept falling back to the point where, to me, Bo, this guy's a leader. And at the end of the day, you needed that kind of leadership if you're going to make the change from the Wentz era to a new era.
Yeah, and I think that you have seen that in just the way that Hurts connects with his teammates. It's not just, the young guys on offense who came in his draft class, like Jalen Reagor and Quez Watkins. It's not just, a guy like Devontae Smith who played with him at Alabama for a little bit. It's guys like Lane Johnson, who's been in the league for a long time. These guys do sort of look to Jalen Hurts, not necessarily as like the leader of the team, but as a guy who they can count on, and they know is working as hard as anybody else. And he has this sort of preternatural calmness about him, Jalen Hurts does. And you sort of saw that in the 2-minute drill in week one at the end of the first half. They've got the ball on the Falcons 40-something yard line with a minute 40 to go and 3 timeouts, and they're taking their time. They're not rushing because they don't need to. And he ends up making a play on that touchdown pass to Dallas Goedert that really sort of changed the game from there. Instead of going in at the half up, 10-6, they're up 15-6. So I think that Jalen Hurts, aside from his qualities as a quarterback, and, he'll never be like the most perfect pocket passer. I think, the Eagles have to build around what his skills are. But just him as a leader and as the guy in the locker room, I think he is everything that you would want as a quarterback. I think he is as advertised.
Do you think, as a general principle, people don't value the intangibles like that Jalen Hurts has enough for the quarterback position?
I don't know. I think that sometimes those intangibles can be a little bit overrated. And, you look at a guy like Justin Herbert with the Chargers, a guy who was dinged for his intangibles because he's a little bit more of an introvert and not like a rah-rah guy. Well, guess what? He's awesome, and he might be the best young quarterback in the league. So I think we can tend to overrate that stuff. But there's no doubt that the influence that Hurts has on the locker room is real.
Bo, let's flip over to the defense. I want to get your perspective on what Gannon did on Sunday, because I feel like that was a defense that realistically we haven't seen in a long time in Philadelphia. This wasn't the Schwartz Y9. This wasn't Billy Davis, whatever he was trying to do at times. This wasn't Juan Castillo's defense, right? This is a very different defense that we saw on Sunday.
Yeah, well, and it was a lot different than certainly what you saw with Jim Schwartz. And I think we'll see it be even more different as the season goes on, because, with Jim Schwartz, it was, this is what we do it well, and we know what our strengths and weaknesses are, right? We're going to line up, play 4 guys. We're not going to blitz. We're going to play mostly, man-to-man in the back. And with Gannon, that was not the case. We saw 3-4 down linemen a bunch of times. We saw a bunch of different looks, and I think we're going to see even more different looks as the season goes on. I think Gannon was sort of hiding stuff once this game got away from the Falcons. And there was a lot of rotation on the back end too. Like, of course, Jim Schwartz rotated up front, but we saw two different groups of linebackers playing in base and nickel. We saw a bunch of different stuff. I think this defense and what Jonathan Gannon does is as exciting a thing that we're going to follow as the season goes on.
One of the things on the TV broadcast that Greg Olson brought up was that he mentioned the fact that Sirianni and Gannon are both former position coaches and the value that they bring from being position coaches to their current jobs. Do you think that played a factor in the game on Sunday and a factor moving forward?
Well, I think that's hard to say, but I think that one thing you can say is that throughout training camp and throughout every time that we've talked to Nick Sirianni, he emphasizes the importance of teaching and teaching the fundamentals. And obviously that is a result of him having been a position coach. I would imagine that almost every head coach was a position coach at some point, right? But he seems to have brought those lessons with him, the importance of emphasizing the fundamentals and stuff like that. And, for 1 week, it worked out. Now they have some things to clean up. It wasn't a perfect game. They had a bunch of pre-snap penalties on offense. They had a bunch of missed tackles on defense in the first quarter. So there's still room to grow for sure.
You mentioned still room to grow. Obviously, nobody in their right mind is predicting this team to go 17-0, but was there enough positives from week one for you to look at this team and say, I can see a pathway for them to get to maybe 8 or 9 wins this year, whereas maybe previously a lot of people were wondering if they would hit the over 6.5 line in Vegas?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that is within the realm of possibility. I mean, first of all, you've got a division that is pretty weak. Who knows what happens with Ryan Fitzpatrick in Washington, but that's not a team that should scare you. The Giants, I think, are going to be really bad. And who knows what happens with Dallas. And, all of a sudden that week 3 game on Monday night in I guess 1 week with the Eagles and Dallas is going to be an interesting game. Right now the Eagles are the only team with a win in the division. So we'll see what happens. The beginning of the schedule is difficult for the Eagles. They've got the Niners at home this week. After the Cowboys, they've got the Chiefs. Then I think they've got the Panthers on the road. And then I want to say the Chargers after that. So, the Bucks is first, and then they played the Chargers later. So it's going to be an interesting season. I'm not so sure that 9 wins is not possible. I think that is definitely within the range of possibility. And if Jalen Hurts continues to play like this and they continue to put him in positions to succeed and he doesn't turn the ball over, I don't think there's any doubt that this could be a playoff team, especially because of the state of the division.
At the end of this season, what quantifies a successful first year for Nick Sirianni in your mind?
I think the most important thing to see is that the offense looks like it can create interesting opportunities. If this looks like a good offense, if it's a top 12 offense in the league, given their personnel, I think that is probably long-term the biggest sign of positivity that you could get. Now, if Jalen Hurts establishes himself as a franchise quarterback, that's great. That's sort of better than you could hope for, because the Eagles obviously have an opportunity this offseason with all their draft picks and opening up some cap space to be able to address that position if Hurts doesn't prove to be the case, in which case I think you would want to know that Sirianni is the kind of guy who could develop a young quarterback if that's the case. But I think if you just see tangible improvement on every side of the ball and, things are not cratered by injury to an aging offensive line, I think that's reasonable expectations to have.
He is Bo Wulf from The Athletic. Follow him on Twitter at Bo_Wulf. Give him a follow. Also, subscribe to The Athletic like I do. Check out all of his work over on The Athletic. Great coverage from him, Zach Berman, and the gang over on The Athletic. And he joined us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Bo, keep up the great work. I hope to talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Have a good night.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Great stuff from Bo there. A couple things I wanted to hit on before we get the break and we get to your guys' messages on the other side. Of course, you can direct message the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. You can download for free from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can message us as you watch the show at 973 ESPN on YouTube and Twitter. And, of course, text board 609-403-0973. One of the things Bo mentioned was that, a successful season for the Eagles is not directly tied to the wins and losses. And I think that's something that we have tried to have conversations about in the past and has kind of gotten lost in the sauce, because a lot of times we so judge everything on numbers because of sports. Sports has caused us to judge everything based on a numerical definition instead of on what we actually see on the field. And, part of that is fantasy football. Part of that is sports betting. Part of that is, for some people, laziness. It's not the same for every person. But I would just caution people to just, as this season goes along, there's going to be some losses this year that you're going to turn around and look around and be like, what the heck happened to the Eagles? And I just want to warn you, those losses are coming. I mean, that loss might even come this Sunday. This Sunday is either going to be an incredible win by the Eagles or a disheartening loss to the 49ers. Because even though the 49ers are dealing with injuries, Jason Verrett, their top corner, out for the year. They're going to be without Raheem Mostert for the rest of the year. They got some injuries they're dealing with. But this team is still coached by Kyle Shanahan, and it's no longer Nick Mullins playing quarterback for San Francisco. It's Jimmy Garoppolo, and they got the Trey Lance package going as well. This is a dangerous 49ers team, and you're going to find out this Sunday who this team is, not by how they win or lose, but how they adjust in-game. Because Kyle Shanahan is one of the greatest offensive strategists in the NFL. He's one of the best. And he's got a defense going out there with some monsters, guys like Nick Bosa on that D-line. How does this team respond through adversity? When things don't go well, when they don't go their way, what happens? You're going to find that out this Sunday. And then when we find out how they handle adversity, then we're going to learn who they really are. Because in weeks 3, 4, 5, 6, does what happens in week 2 roll into week 3? Does what happened in week 1 roll forward? Do they clean up the turnovers? Do they do a better job at being a better all-around football team? These are questions that have to be answered. These are questions that have to be asked. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. As always, we will hear from all of you guys out there listening on the radio, in your car, through the phone, online. We appreciate you joining the show today with your thoughts and comments on the Eagles, on the NFL, and more next right here. Josh Hennig hanging out with you. This is Game Night on 97.3 ESPN.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. It's week 2 of the 2021 season this Sunday, hosting the 49ers at the Link.
1st and 10, San Francisco at the 25. It's intercepted down the far sideline and in for an Eagles touchdown, Alex Singleton.
Pre-game coverage begins at noon. Maryland Mike called all the action starting at 1. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN. South Jersey's Eagles station.
Just jump to the.
Hey, I'm Pete Thompson. The ShopRite LPGA Classic, presented by Acer, is excited to welcome back fans at the Seaview Resort from October 1st through the 3rd. Come see past champions Mel Reed, Lexi Thompson, and the stars of the LPGA battle it out at this shore tradition. Children 17 and under get in free all week, and ShopRite Price Plus cardholders can download 2 free tickets at ShopRiteLPGAClassic.com. Purchase hospitality tickets while they last. We'll see you there.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here on Game Night, 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank CLC. Download for free from the Google Play or Apple App Store. You would have had the app. You would have seen the latest updates on the Eagles. My latest article on Jalen Hurts over at 97.3 ESPN.com. You would have seen the latest on what Bow Wow is complaining about the Atlanta Falcons and the Eagles game on Sunday. All of that, including the Phillies mailbag, the latest on high school sports in South Jersey, and more, all on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on the show. As promised, I want to get some of your guys' messages, a couple other news items before we get out of here on 97.3 ESPN. First of all, over on the text board at 609-403-0973, David in Delaware chimes in and says, they said the Steelers would be horrible this year and didn't have a chance to beat Buffalo. I don't go with that. I have faith in Ben and the team. Congrats on the Birds win. That's David in Delaware. David, first of all, thank you for your gesture to all of the Eagle fans out there. Listen, I wasn't one of those people who hate on the Steelers. The problem with the Steelers is, and this is not my opinion, David, in Delaware, this is just my reading of people's analysis, okay, is that it seemed to be that people were very bent out of shape over the idea that they didn't think the Steelers could do again this year what happened last year, which was Ben basically carry the offense at times. But as we saw in Sunday's game, they don't need the offense to carry the game. What they need is the defense to do their job. People forget that Mike Tomlin is a defensive-minded guy. This is a guy who's a former D coordinator. It's not like Tomlin is just some, guy who loves offense. No, Tomlin does whatever it takes to win. He's a grinder. He's a tough dude. And I have to believe, without, any information telling me otherwise, that if the Steelers can go through the entire 17-game schedule and only need their offense to step up half of those games, Tomlin's happy. So the people who thought the Steelers were horrible this year is probably because they assumed that Ben would be horrible this year. Well, guess what? Ben is no longer the Pillsbury Doughboy. Ben actually went out and got a workout regimen and cleaned up his health, and he looks like he came in great shape this year. And I think that'll do better for him and the Steelers. Now, my one concern with the Steelers is I would like to see them do a better job at getting the running game going, because I think Najee Harris is a special player, okay? I like what he brings to the table as an athlete, as a ball carrier, just all around. The blocking that they had for him in Buffalo, now part of it might be because Buffalo is a very good defense, but the average 2.8 yards per carry is not what Najee Harris is capable of. You could argue that Najee Harris is the best running back to come out of Alabama since Mark Ingram. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the Steelers went out and got him where they did in the draft, in the first round. I think that he could be better than what he showed. And I think the Steelers got to prove that they can be better at running the ball than they showed. 16 carries is great, but 2.8 yards per carry, you need to be better than that. So, David Dell, I think that's where I've kind of latched my hat onto. I think Ben will be fine. I think the defense will be good. I just think it comes down to, can they get the running game going? That's the deal with the Steelers. Dave from Delaware chiming in at 609-403-0973. Another message came in, and person says, still don't understand how you put Hurts as one of the 40 best quarterbacks in the league. Now, first of all, this comes from the guy with the black and white Doug Peterson avatar. So obviously there's an agenda with this comment. Look, I would flip it over to you and say you can't name 40 better quarterbacks in the league off the top of your head. Don't use Google. Don't use your smartphone. Don't use your ESPN app, your fantasy football app, your CBS app, your Yahoo Sports app, Roto World, NBC Sports, whatever platform you use. Nobody off the top of their head can name 40 quarterbacks in the NFL right now better than Jalen Hurts. In fact, most people can't even name 40 quarterbacks in the NFL because the majority of people don't even know who the backup quarterback is on most teams. It's irrational comments like that that need to be highlighted, pointed out, and then dismissed altogether. Good job. Good job. Good job by you to completely show the world what you're made of. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Keep the messages coming in. You could DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. We are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. By the way, a little Phillies news coming down about 20 minutes ago. It's the end of an era, folks. The Vince Velasquez era is officially over. The Phillies have announced that Vince Velasquez, who was designated for assignment on September 11th, has been released. It's over. The nightmare is done. No more having to rationalize, explain, question, figure out what to do with Velasquez. No, it's over. It's done. It is done. The Velasquez era is over. I am so happy I can partake in that news and share it with all of you out there listening to me right now on 97.3 ESPN. It's a wonderful day. The Velasquez era was such a uncomfortable connection to an era of Phillies baseball that frankly we all would rather forget. The Ken Giles trade turned out to be one of the worst trades in Phillies history. Velasquez is supposed to be one of the centerpieces of that trade. And now he's gone. A couple more messages coming in here before we get out of here. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Tom from the Villas chimes in. I always love Tom from the Villas messages. He says, wow, I'm a Wentz fan, and Hurts did better. People need to get over it. That's from Tom in the Villas. Listen, Tom, you know what it is. People just don't want to accept certain people are actually good or can do good at certain things. And listen, I don't think Wentz is going to stink up the place in Indianapolis, but I think that there's definitely some strong coaching that he needs that maybe he will only accept from Frank Reich. Maybe Frank Reich's the only person who can get through to Wentz and explain to him, Carson, you got to stop holding the ball so long. Carson, if you got a 3-step drop, get the ball out of your hands. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, let that ball fly, man. Jalen Hurts didn't hold the ball for 3, 4, 5 seconds yesterday. That was a big reason why the Eagles on Sunday. That's why the Eagles were successful and Wentz struggled. Wentz has to get out of his own way. Listen, I was one of the biggest Wentz fans coming out of college. I pounded the table for the guy. I stood up on the soapbox. I told everybody about this guy, and I looked right for a little while there. But as time went on, Wentz's ego got the best of him. Because at the end of the day, Carson Wentz, who claims to be a born-again Christian, wouldn't even follow what his own Bible says. Because the Bible says pride comes before a fall. Wentz's ego became so big that it led to his downfall. And he still will not admit when and where he is wrong. And that is what will always hold him back. One more comment. Dan from EHT chimes in here into the show on 97.3 ESPN. He says 2 things. That the Phillies officially got rid of the Black Cloud. Vince Velasquez, we're going to the playoffs, baby. That's good, Dan Ichi. Dan Ichi also says, how bad the Falcons are. How bad are the Falcons, Josh? Here's the thing. I think the Falcons are going to be fine. They have a former NFL MVP at quarterback. They still have a lot of talent in the offensive end. I think their defense is just garbage, to be honest with you. I think that outside of their front that they have some talent, guys like Deion Jones and guys like that. But their secondary is probably one of the worst in the league. But I think they're going to win about 4 or 5 games this year. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. Thanks, everybody, for chiming into the show. I'll catch you tomorrow.
Hey, South Jersey, this is Billy Schwein. Tune into The Locker Room every Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN. Each